December 5th, 1972, British brig Der Greater saw an abandoned ship drifting through the Atlantis near Azores Island off Portugal. The crew boarded the Mary Celeste. Everything was in order. The clothes were packed away from the crew, but there was no people on board. The only thing missing from the ship was the lifeboat. And so began one of the most enduring mysteries of the sea. Hey everyone, I'm Mariana.
My name is Ron.
And welcome to Stories Told by Us. So we hope you've had a fabulous week. Welcome to episode 8, The Mary Celeste.
Ooh, what's this story? I actually haven't heard. You told me that we were doing this story, and I think I was meant to know what it meant. I didn't.
No. Okay, so the Mary Celeste is one of the, I guess we could call it a ghost ship story.
Okay.
Not necessarily ghost sightings or anything like that, but basically a mystery of the sea.
Okay, very cool.
So let's begin with, so it's December 5th, 1972, and Captain David Morehouse of the Der Greater ship was taken aback to discover that there was an unguided vessel of the Mary Celeste. So basically he was out at sea with his crewmen, and he saw an unguided ship, and as they got closer he realized it was the Mary Celeste, and he knew this ship and he knew the captain of this ship, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, so he sees this ship, and he's quite taken aback because this ship departed from New York just as his ship had done, and he had actually had dinner with the captain and his captain's wife the night before they set out to sea. So this ship, the Mary Celeste, had left 8 days before the Der Greater. So by all accounts, if you had thought about like the navigation side of things, it should have reached its destination of Genoa, Italy, by now, by this date. Okay, so he basically decided to change course of where he was headed to check the ship out to see what was happening, if they were in any danger or there was any problems or what was going on.
Okay. Yeah.
So Morehouse sent a boarding party, basically. So he sent some of his crewmen on a smaller boat to go onto the Mary Celeste to see if they could assist in any way, to see if there was anything going on. Now, when they got there, when these crewmen went onto the boat, nothing really seemed to be askew. So basically, there was the only thing that they kind of saw was some ship's charts tossed about, like, navigation charts tossed about. But they had encountered 2 weeks of really rough weather, so storms and rain. So that was nothing weird. It could have been just, the ship went on a wave and things fell off a desk or whatever. Nothing major. All the crew's belongings were still on the ship. Clothes were neatly put away. Everything was just nothing weird, nothing bad, nothing. It wasn't like dead bodies on the ship or things thrown about the ship or anything like that, or things missing. It was just normal, as if the crew were perhaps in another part of the ship, basically.
Okay.
Except there was no one on board.
There was no one on board?
No one on board. Absolutely no one.
So there was no seamen on board?
No seamen on board.
Okay.
Great, I knew that was going to come at some point. So basically below decks, they found the ship's, like I said, the ship's charts tossed about, the crewmen's belongings in the quarters, and one thing that was missing though was the only ship's lifeboat. Okay, so that's gone.
Oh, okay.
So the lifeboat's gone. So that's automatically like, okay, well, obviously everyone's gotten off the boat.
Yeah, they're
for
scared
whatever reason.
Yeah.
The other thing that they found was that there was 3.5 feet of water in the below decks in the ship's bottom. Now, 3.5 feet sounds like a lot, but in the area space of the ship's bottom, it wasn't a really big deal. But what was down there was the cargo. So this ship was actually transporting 1,700 or just over 1,710 barrels of industrial alcohol. So not consumable alcohol, industrial. So quite a poisonous substance. So it's not something you could drink because you'd die.
Okay.
Industrial alcohol.
Some will try that.
Probably. There was also 6 months supply of food and water.
Yeah.
So it's not like the people on board could have starved to death or anything like that. Everything was tip top. It was seaworthy. There was nothing going on, nothing bad.
Okay. So nothing had been touched.
Nothing had been touched. The other thing that they did notice was there was actually a pump. One of the pumps on board was disassembled.
Okay.
Don't know why. It was just a disassembled one of the water pumps. That was it.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, they board this ship. There's no one there. Don't know where anyone is. No signs of, foul play or anything. So they take this ship. So it was three. I think it was three. Oh, I hope I didn't get that wrong. But 3 crewmen basically sailed this ship, and they got it to shore. Okay, and they went to Gibraltar.
Okay.
Okay, Gibraltar.
Okay.
Which is off Spain.
Spain, yeah.
Okay. Before I go on to what happens there, let me sort of go back a little bit to November 7th of 1872. So November 7th, 1872, this ship, the Mary Celeste, set sail with 7 crewmen and Captain Benjamin Spooner Breeks, along with his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia.
Okay.
Okay. So a little bit of a background sort of story of the captain. Seemed like he by all accounts was just a hardworking, regular citizen, nothing bad, no like criminal past, nothing like that, just a family man. He had quite a lot of experience in being a sea captain. Him and his brother were actually considering leaving all the work that they had aboard ships, and they were actually going to go to start a hardware store.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, I think he decided this was going to be his last sort of
trip,
basically. I'm not exactly sure why he took his wife and 2-year-old daughter, but they actually also had a 7-year-old son called Arthur, but they decided to leave him back in New York with relatives because he was at school at the time. So they didn't want to take him out of school, to stop his education. So they left him behind in New York with relatives. Okay, and obviously the 2-year-old decided to come along with. It could have been that it was going to be quite a long trip. They were going from New York to the island where they were going, which was Azores Island. So perhaps it was just a matter of the wife didn't want to be lonely for that long, and I don't know
Maybe.
Why the wife and daughter came. And obviously the daughter comes with the mum because she's 2. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. It's too little to leave behind, yeah. Okay.
So basically it was the Mary Celeste was a 282-ton brigantine, and it battled very heavy weather for about 2 weeks to reach the Azores Islands. So the ship's last log entry was on 5 a.m. on November 25th. Okay, so they set sail November 7th. November 25th was the last entry into the ship's log. The ship was discovered December 5th.
Okay.
Okay, so it was 10 days between the last sort of entry, basically, of the ship's log. And in the ship's log, when they got those records later, there was nothing strange, besides from the fact that they had encountered a lot of choppy seas, bad weather. That was kind of it. Mm-hmm. Okay. A little bit of background of the Mary Celeste beforehand. It had quite a shadowy past. So originally it was called the Amazon. Okay. And it was given a new name after a series of mishaps. Some of those mishaps included the illness and death of the very first captain, and also a collision with another ship. After it became the Mary Celeste and it was abandoned for now, and it spent some time. It went through trial and everything. They tried to discover where the crew had gone, where the captain, his wife, and his daughter had gone. After a few months of that, it actually was reused, and it was used for another 12 years after that. And towards the end of it, there was actually the last captain, or the last owner, actually got done for fraud with insurance purposes. So it never, obviously, was not meant to be. That ship.
So it was like
almost cursed, I guess you could say. Yep. So there was just a series of mishaps that happened around that. Okay. So there we go. So we know we've got 7 crewmen, captain, so 10 people on a ship. Everything seems fine, seaworthy, everything's good, and then they're just gone. They just vanished. See you later. So let's go back to the Morehouse's boarding party that went onto the ship. So after spotting the Mary Celeste, so 10 days after the crew, so David Morehouse and the crew of the De Gracia found the ship, and we had the 3 crewmen go onto the ship and find out that there's no one there. 10 days later, they sailed ship some 800 miles to Gibraltar. I keep going to say Gibraltar, but Gibraltar.
Because it's Spanish.
It's Spanish. Where they held a salvage hearing. So what used to happen was that if a ship was found abandoned, they would have a hearing, and whoever found the ship could claim the insurance, whatever the ship was insured for.
Oh,
okay, so basically if we're out at sea and we come across an abandoned ship and we take it to the nearest port or whatever, you can actually claim the insurance. But they investigate it. So it's not just like, here you go, here's the money.
Yeah.
They obviously want to find out, well, where's the original crew? Where's the captain? You know, what's going on? Yeah? So they go through a trial. Now, this was basically, the hearing, like I said, was to determine whether the salvagers, which were the crewmen from the De Gracia, were able to receive the payout. Okay? So what happened was that the Attorney General, so he was the one in charge, Frederick Solely Flood, he suspected from day one that there was foul play, and he decided to investigate big time. Because where on earth did these people go?
That's right, it sounds really dodgy already.
It's just like, and you know, I'll talk about the theories later, because there was lots of theories, and there are still to this day theories behind it. But none of there's one theory, and I'll tell you that at the very end, but all the other theories would have had some sort of evidence on board. I don't know why that was so hard.
So there was no evidence.
But there was nothing. There was nothing like that. So basically, if you think about it, we've got 3 crewmen that come to a port with an abandoned ship. Now, the insurance payout for this ship was worth $46,000 back in those days.
That's a lot of money.
So $46,000
in the 70s, yeah.
In 1800s. Did you say the 70s?
1700s, I think.
1800. 1800s. 1872.
Oh, I thought you said 1973.
No. So did I?
Yeah.
No. Totally wrong. 1872.
Let's start the podcast again.
1872. Muppet. Sorry. So basically, you know, if these 3 crewmen come along and they bring this big ship on board, and they're like, so we just found this ship, don't know where anyone is, we'd like to claim the insurance. So immediately the Attorney General thought, hold on, what's going on? Potentially you guys have killed everyone on board to claim the money. Obviously, you know, that's just like the first sort of instinct. So they start investigating. They investigate for 3 months, but they cannot find any evidence to prove anything, you know,
foul play.
Any foul play happened. So 3 months later, they found nothing. So the salvagers, the 3 crewmen from the original ship, received only about a sixth of the payout. So they did not receive the $46,000 because the Attorney General was convinced that something was not right. So they said, here you go, you're going to get this much. So they literally got a very small portion of the money. But they still got some money.
Yeah. It's not right, though. Like if they're entitled to it and you haven't found anything weird about it, why can't he just make the decision of just giving a little bit of the money? Because I think you're guilty.
Yeah, no, and it was all just speculation. There was nothing else to it, basically. So, okay, so that's what happened basically. And after that, like I said, it was used for another 12 years after that for transportation. Okay, so let's talk about the different theories surrounding the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste. Okay. So before I get into the theories, there was a newspaper article that was really ridiculously over sensationalized, and the person who wrote it put a load of stuff that was not true. Like there was all sorts of stuff, like there was, you know, blood stains everywhere, and that the beds were still warm, and there was a half-eaten breakfast on board, and all this stuff that never happened. That the life ship, what's it called? life raft.
Salvages?
No.
Oh, the lifeboat.
Yeah, what's it called? Lifeboat.
I know what you mean, the extra boat.
Lifeboat, yeah. That's now to edit that. That the lifeboat was still there, like all sorts. So this person just completely sensationalized all sorts, and so a lot of people believed that all these things had happened, and even to this day there are still people that believe all that. But
fake news, basically.
So here are some of the theories. Okay, some of them. So there's lots of things that seem pretty far-fetched, so they're pretty easy to dismiss, but let's go through them. So the first one is mutiny on board.
Okay.
So when they were investigating, and they had the ship in Gibraltar, basically they found some stains that resembled blood. Okay, and they also
this is true.
This is true.
Okay.
So they found some stains that resembled blood, and they also found some marks on the boat that appear to be from an axe. So
okay.
like axe marks. So there was the claim that perhaps there was for example, they had drunk some of the alcohol. The crew had drunk some of the alcohol. They had got drunk, and in a violent drunken rage, one of the crewmen murdered everyone else. So that was one theory, okay?
Okay.
But it turned out that the axe marks were actually from the construction of the ship originally, and the appearance of blood stains was actually rust.
Oh,
and that was proven, so it was definitely not a thing. But in this newspaper article, again, they didn't say later on, actually it's just rust and blah, blah, blah.
Just kidding.
And so, yeah, that sort of maintained that. The other idea of that as well was that perhaps that Briggs actually was, because he was a Christian, that he had some sort of religious breakdown and that he murdered everyone.
Oh.
And then used the lifeboat to escape. So that was another theory. Okay, so basically someone went crazy and killed everyone else at the end. So that was one theory. But there was no proof of that. Literally, there was no blood on the boat anywhere. There was nothing.
You would have taken some food with you as well, and there was still food in there.
Well, but they had 6 months supply of food, so easily one person could have taken a small portion of that and be fine. It's not like they would have taken 6 months worth of food and water for one person. The other thing that I completely forgot to mention, which is actually quite important, was that when they did that log back in November, that last entry, they actually had land in sight. They could see land. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about that after. The next more believable theory, especially back in the 1800s, was a pirate attack. So that was a real thing, that did happen. They thought that perhaps there was North African pirates that raided the ship and killed the crew or took the crew or whatever. But again, there was no evidence. If it had been a pirate attack, pirates want something out of it. They don't just come on board for nothing. They would have taken things.
Taken the food, taken the alcohol.
Absolutely. Taken the ship altogether.
That's right.
For them.
Yeah,
you know?
The cheap,
And generally when there was pirate attacks, people would have died. So...
And they would have left the bodies there.
They would have either left the bodies there, or, perhaps they could have thrown the bodies overboard and then there wouldn't be any trace of that. But either way, pirates would have gone in and taken something, but there was nothing missing.
And not killed it, and not cleaned the blood, I guess.
Yeah, they're pirates. They would have just done whatever. It would have been a massacre, whatever, taken what they needed and see you later. They wouldn't have sat there and cleaned it up afterwards, would they? So that was pretty quickly just dismissed, that theory, and they thought, no, that is not what's happened. Another theory was that Briggs faked his own death. So someone randomly decided, what if he wanted to escape his life and he wanted to fake his own death, so he killed all the crew, sort of like the religious breakdown. He killed the crew, and perhaps he didn't kill his wife and daughter. Maybe they got on the lifeboat and they escaped to get a new name, blah, blah, blah. But they had a son back in New York.
Yeah, so why would he do that?
Why would he do that?
Yeah, that was the plan. He would have brought the child
as well. Yeah, so then that was very, again, and there was no history whatsoever of a bad bone in this man's body. By all accounts, from all the people that knew him, family, everyone back in New York, they're all like, no. He was a great family man. He was a hard worker. He never set a foot wrong. So there was no indication that that would have been the case, that he was depressed or unhappy or anything at all. So that was, see you later. The next theory, which I like but very unlikely, was of course a sea monster. So a giant squid.
The Kraken.
Or the Kraken, yes, some sort of sea monster. But again, if it had been a sea monster and all those tales from the past, it would have destroyed the ship in some way, wouldn't it? Like if it was a giant squid, the tentacle would have come up and smashed the sails and broken the ship in half or something. I don't think a sea monster would have just picked out the crew one by one without disrupting anything. Yeah. So that was very quickly like, nah, see you later, no sea monster. Okay. There was another story by a Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He wrote a short story that was published in 1884 that he said that he thought that their crew had been victim of an ex-slave seeking vengeance. So there was just a random ex-slave who decided to go out and kill white people for what he had endured as a slave. So he sought out and, maybe it's sort of like a pirate, I guess, and went on the boat and just killed everyone. Okay. Completely random. Like so random.
That is random.
I mean, yeah, something like that could happen. Yeah, you don't know. But it was just so far-fetched and people were like, no, what is that? Where did you even come up with that?
This guy must have just taken the story and came up with his own story.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has happened for hundreds of years, decades. Okay, and now we come to the most likely. So one thing that they did find on the ship, like the only evidence they did find, they found a faulty chronometer. They knew that they had been rough seas, and they had found one of the onboard pumps was clogged. Okay, so what they thought from that is perhaps Briggs, as a captain, he found himself lost, maybe. So there was, like I said, rough seas could have thrown them off course. He had a broken chronometer, which would, assist in them getting lost, basically. And they also had a clogged pump, so that could have led to other issues with the ship. So perhaps he, took on his better judgment, he decided, you know what, we're lost. We can see, remember I told you that they saw land when they did that last log? So when they did that last log, they were actually in sight of an island called Santa Maria. So they could see that. So perhaps he thought, you know what, our best chance is to get into the lifeboat, all of us, and sail towards land. And as they did that, perhaps, like I said, rough seas, they, whatever happened, they were lost at sea. They never made it there. They were swept away by a giant wave, who knows? Fell overboard, the end.
That sounds the most likely.
That is one, that does sound likely. And then we had one other, probably the most likely of all theories. Yeah. So do you remember I said that they were transporting industrial alcohol?
Yeah.
So they had 1,710 barrels of industrial alcohol in the bottom of the ship. Now, 9 of those, because when the other crew came on, they found 1,701. Okay,
Ooh.
But there was 1,710. Now, 9 of them were actually in red oak barrels. Now, red oak is a lot more porous, which means that the alcohol could have leaked out. Okay.
Yeah.
So what they thought could have happened was, now this alcohol was, like I said before, it would kill you if you drank some. So it was highly toxic, and it had a lot of, you would smell it if it leaked. Like it was full on powerful, potent stuff. So what a theory is that perhaps because being in those porous barrels, the alcohol leaked out.
Yeah.
Okay. And perhaps spread through the bottom of the ship, and being alcohol, there could have been an explosion. Okay.
Okay.
And if there had been an explosion, because of, I think just the way it was set up, because I thought if you've got an explosion, wouldn't that explode the whole ship? Okay. Wouldn't it cause damage? But apparently not. Apparently this industrial alcohol could have exploded within those barrels, and it would have been loud and it would have had left a smell, but it wouldn't have caused like fire. It would have just exploded at the end and evaporated.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not good with these things, so I don't know, but this is what it said. But basically, what they thought was that there was an explosion caused by the fumes of the nine red oak barrels, which were porous. And so when they heard the loud bang, it would have frightened the captain and all the crew. And obviously they would have thought, okay, this is really dangerous. We're not safe to be on this boat. I also did mention that there was a pump that was disassembled. So perhaps they thought, okay, this could cause another explosion. We're surrounded by 1,700 barrels of alcohol, and now we've got a broken pump. We're not going well here. So I think basically Briggs decided in the best
interest of the crew, well, all their lives. Remember, they've got a 2-year-old on there. That's right.
There's a 2-year-old baby on this ship. So he has decided, you know what, our best bet is to get off this ship because this whole ship could explode. Yeah. And we're all going to die.
So he took all his seamen and went somewhere else.
So he took all the crew, his wife and his child. They got onto the lifeboat. Now, the lifeboat was actually attached by a 400-meter rope.
Yep.
So I think the hope was that they were going to still be attached to the boat, to the ship, so that they wouldn't just be stranded at sea.
Yeah.
So they were still attached. So the ship would continue going and set in its course. You could have set it to continue on, in hopes that that they would get to land, or the destination that they had. So we've got our dog here with us, but the rope was detached.
And they
so perhaps at some point it somehow, undid, got loose somehow, and they were lost at sea. So that's the most likely, isn't it? Realistically. If you've got a ship, the lifeboat's gone and nothing else is touched, you would imagine, well, they've obviously gotten in the lifeboat for some reason.
Yeah.
And they've just been lost at sea. It's just like a real tragedy. And actually, I think that's the saddest, really. Because if pirates had come on and massacred everyone, it would have been like all really fast and horrible and dramatic, but then dead at the end. But can you imagine 10 people, including one baby, in a lifeboat in the middle of the ocean with rough, stormy weather? Like, how? I'd be petrified.
Yeah.
And pretty much they were in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, they could see this island, Santa Maria. But when you can see an island and still be kilometers and kilometers away, it doesn't mean because you can see land, you're close to it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lifeboat, especially in those years, they wouldn't have like a motor or anything. You would have to
row it.
And then if he's so far away,
would you have rowed it? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I feel really dumb, but I wasn't alive in 1870. I don't know. But yeah, absolutely. And if you've got stormy weather, that's how do you know you're going to get there? But it's really sad because they could have just been super rough weather. People have fallen out of the boat, and the end, they've lost at sea. So that's the most likely. And they have actually, there's been documentaries about the Mary Celeste. There's been there was a movie, and there's certainly lots of books. So it's a real rabbit hole that you can go down if you're really interested. There's lots and lots and lots of information on it. So this is just like a snippet of it. But I do believe, out of all those theories, I do think that Captain Briggs. Well, that was another theory, but I've just kind of didn't even bring it in because I thought, come on, and I do believe in UFOs, but no, not in this instance. I think there's just literally zero evidence of that at all. I think anyway. But I do think that that's what happened. I think Captain Briggs, in the interest of his crew, being the captain, thought, no, we're not safe for whatever reason. We're not safe here. So let's get off this ship and let's try to, make it to land safe and sound. And unfortunately, things did not go that way. And also, obviously, there wasn't any. I mean, when they found the ship, it was in perfect condition. So unfortunately, perhaps it was just the wrong decision. They could have stayed on that ship. They would have made it to their destination, or even if they were lost because they were off track, they still would have made it to somewhere. The island maybe, or Gibraltar, or wherever they were going. Gibraltar. I don't know how to say it in English. Gibraltar. What do you think?
Well, I think this is a perfect example of what can happen when you bring your wife to work with you.
Yes.
Everyone goes crazy and things get lost.
And things get... What? When do things get lost? I'm sorry, but the wives are the ones that find things, not lose them.
Find crazy men that they married. No, I don't know. No. I don't know what I'm saying now.
So what do you think? Pirate attack, sea monster, mutiny?
I reckon it definitely was a pirate attack by a sea monster.
A sea monster?
Monster. No, I think the second last one and the last one that you told me seemed the most likely, obviously, the more logical, I would say. Yeah, they
so
tried to escape, go off
course.
track, and then they got lost at sea.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the sea is too big, so it was very unlikely it would be found.
Well, that's the other thing. Look, it's a 50-50. Either they wash up ashore, or they get to land, or they never do. You know what I mean? And so they were really in the middle of nowhere. So it was very unlikely that they were going to come to shore at any point. So, but it's just, I think that's the most tragic ending, to be honest. I think that's really sad. They all got onto a lifeboat and just vanished, disappeared.
Yeah.
So that is it. That is the story of the supposedly cursed Mary Celeste. I hope you enjoyed it.
Let us know what you think in the comments as well.
Yeah, what do you think happened? Do you think maybe UFOs took it?
Have you heard this story? Maybe you know a theory.
Absolutely. All right, we'll have a fantastic week. We will be back next Monday for another episode of Stories Told by Us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Stories Told by Us, and you can find us on
Spotify
and Stitcher
and all your favorite podcast hosts places that you can think of.
Did that make any sense?
No.
Not really. Anyway, we hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.